Hello everybody, this is George from Digital Artscope and I'll be showcasing my workflow around building patterns. So we'll start with something easy. Just make a relatively small canvas and we'll start making a pattern which is 256 by 256. We can do this by rulers, which I've set up to pixels. If you right click on them you can see that. Control R to show this, but in CS6 uh, Photoshop has this handy gizmo that showcases the size of your selection. So the shift is hold down and I drag this out to 56. I'll just place it in the middle here and snap some rulers to it. You can obviously make new rulers by right clicking by view new guide. So you can specify here 256 and it will start 256 from here to here. We can see it, but this is a bit more tedious, and recently Photoshop snaps are running very smoothly. So I'll also be needing some rulers to snap right in the middle of my selection. So you see how they snap. That's great. Okay, now I don't need my selection anymore. I'll just make a new layer and leave background as it is. So we'll make like a circle based pattern just to showcase our some basic principles. So let's go to elliptical marquee tool. We won't be making ellipses but rather circles. So again, if we press shift we constrain our selection to circle, and we'll try to start from this middle. It will automatically snap to it. Holding shift and then alt key together will make it alt makes it start from the point where you placed your cursor, and shift makes it a circle. So you see it snaps flawlessly to the rulers, so that's great. So I'll just give it like a stroke. So shift F5 is fill, right click is stroke. So I'll go with stroke for this pattern, and I don't know, let's say 12 pixels, or maybe I can make it larger, 15, say 16. Okay, there you go. So I just made a circle. I can like go in 100% and view what I've got. Okay, I'm using hotkeys like control space and alt to zoom out, just control space to zoom in. Okay, so now what I want to do is make like some little circles uh, from the corners, so they're tangent one to another. So I'll just do the same thing. I start clicking from somewhere in the middle, in the cross, and then hold alt and shift together. So I just go as much as I see fit, say like this. I'll make this in a new layer, and again stroke. I keep it 16. Okay, so all I have to do now, get back to my typical marquee tool, and I have to keep in mind the basic principle around building patterns. A pattern, if you want it to be tileable, that is, and most patterns are, has to be tileable either on one direction, say horizontal or vertical, or both. Most patterns are tileable on both directions, which makes more sense since they're used to like fill out a canvas. So that's what we'll do. So what this means is that all these pixels from this side, from here, have to match up with the pixels from this side, and all the pixels from the bottom side have to match up with the pixels from the top side. So how do you come about this? Well, in my case, I can already envision the pattern. I want it like to have circles all around the corners. I can actually like mimic the pattern behavior by snapping this geometry here. I am pressing Ctrl and Alt, click and drag to clone a circle, right? So let me take this smaller one. Okay, so I want something like this. Okay, and then again with some big circles here, here, here. So something like this. Okay, so in this case, this will be my base uh, tile, which will practically be repeated over and over and over and over again. So I'll just undo everything because I was a bit sloppy, and you can't always trust Photoshop and his snaps. So what I need here is like this part. It's obvious, right? I need this part because this one, the tile over here, is the tile in here, and this side should be this side. So I repeat that. I make like a broad selection here, Control and Alt key to clone this. I can release now any key from the keyboard, and I've made my selection. Now in this area I'll need like the opposite corner. It will automatically snap. If you want to make sure it snaps properly, you can always like zoom in on it and check that out. Okay, so that's it. This is how you make a really simple pattern. I can now like delete these pixels, and now I have to actually make this a pattern. Pattern files are .bat files. They have BAT as an extension from pattern, obviously, and they can store transparency and color, unlike brushes. For instance, when you make a brush preset, you can't record color. It will automatically grayscale. So I want to keep, usually you'd want to have transparency in your patterns to have them more flexible. It obviously depends on the use of it. In this case, I'll make it transparent. What you have to keep in mind is with patterns, it will like copy everything it sees in the canvas. So if I leave my background on, it will copy that as well, and it will have like white pixels recorded in my pattern, and I obviously don't want that in my case, at least. So I hide the background layer. I don't need to be on one layer or another, it's irrelevant. I made my selection. I can double check it to make sure it's okay, and I go to edit, define pattern, and that's it. I give it a name, let's say circles, and click OK. Now we've made a pattern, but where is it and how can we use it? Well, you can use a pattern in many ways. Well, not necessarily many, but two are most common. But I only use a pattern in one way, and I think it's the most flexible, and it's the only way you should really concern yourself with. So first, let's get rule of all these rulers. To move a ruler, you have to like press Control when you run on marquee, and you can move it. And if you move it up or to the side, it will move out. But you can also go to View, Clear Guides. Okay. So the way I'm using patterns is by layer styles. So let me make the background layer a regular layer by double clicking on it. Now I double click again anywhere outside the text field, and I get into this like contextual menu layer style where you can do many things with your layers, including overlaying a pattern. So when you click pattern overlay, it will automatically overlay it with some pattern, which you can find in here. And you're always any pattern you define gets added to your current pattern list, and as on the last position. So here it is. You see, we can obviously scale it. This is why I'm saying this is flexible. You can scale it quite a bit. Obviously you'll notice that Photoshop, you can also like scroll wheel this scale. Photoshop will see on certain stages it will blur out probably a bit too much the pattern. Say this is decent, you notice it's like 25%. So here, Photoshop is sampling every 4 pixels and making 1 out of it. So that's pretty easy math. But when I skip to 24%, apparently it's a bit more complicated for him to gauge exactly how much this is black, how much is gray. So you get this diffused look. So even though you saw me building relatively high resolution pattern at 256 pixels, that's high. If you use it for like small scale stuff, it's good to rescale your patterns down, or make them smaller to start with. So but don't rescale them with this technique, just rescale them the original one, like from 100%, and get these pixels rescaled properly, or rebuilding it like I said before. But on other resolutions this is pretty sharp. Okay, another couple of tricks here. If you click on this, you see you get this menu. Interesting enough, you can rescale this. So if you have many patterns, you can also append or load other patterns. Say, I don't know, artist surfaces. These are predefined Photoshop patterns. It asks you if you want to replace the current one or append them, so add them. I choose this, so you get them here. And also by default the patterns will be like small thumbnails like this, pretty hard to see. So you can always like click on this settings icon and choose large thumbnail, so you can actually notice something there. So that's it. This is my pattern. You can choose any other. Just click out and go. Okay. So this was like a really simple pattern, and what we learned from this is that for your pattern, it doesn't matter where exactly it is, like your selection. It just has to have all the pixels from this side to match the pixels from this other side. So clearly my selection now is wrong, but I could have made this pattern like this. You see, from the middle of the bigger circles. And actually if I have the rectangle selection, it should be okay anyway. So as long as my selection is okay like this is a working pattern, because you see all these pixels here like match up with the ones uh, from the other side. Say here I am like this, here I am like this. So that's like the basic principle of making a pattern, and then it's just a matter of making a selection, going to edit, define pattern. So now what I'm gonna do is show you how to make a more complex pattern. This is like an obvious rectangular based um, pattern, where the pattern is like a rectangle which is repeated endlessly. So let me throw that to the recycle bin. I'll delete these layers as well, and we'll try to make something like this. So this pattern is actually hexagonal based, right, or triangle based if you want, but it's in fact hexagonal. Why it is hexagonal? Because you can actually read like a hexagon here. You see it? It's like this. So six-sided. Obviously in Photoshop, currently at least, you can't make a hexagonal selection and call that a pattern and have like hexagons match up. You can only have patterns that are rectangular and then they repeat uh, to the right and upwards. You can't have like anything else but rectangular. So we'll have to like fit that hexagon at a certain scale into a rectangle. So let me take another look at this. So you see this is like the main element, and it like fits onto itself. It's pretty nifty. You can always make these lines thicker and leave this space in between. You can read like a cube in here, a cube on its large diagonal. So you can like shade one face and leave the others, or shade two of them a little bit and make it more 3D. You can do very interesting stuff with this. So first things first, I'll make an equilateral triangle which will be the basis of my hexagon. So to do this, I'll snap a ruler first, make it another 256 pixels rectangle. Obviously you can make this whatever you want. I don't know, this is like gaming habit. So I snap that in and I put another set of rulers here and another one in the middle. So I'm pretty sure you can make a hexagonal shape in Photoshop in many ways. I'll just make it using selection. It's like the most intuitive thing for me. Obviously if you have it as a shape, you can like hold click, choose custom shape tool and select it from here. Also you can make it like a polygon and go for 6 sides, but where's the fun in having it already built, right? No fun in that. So let's see how we can make it with selection. So I'll just make a broad selection like this, transform it, move its pivot point here. By pressing shift while free transforming either a selection or a set of pixels, you constrain the rotation. So I need 60 degrees, so this is fine. Okay, and I'll also extend my selection on this side. Okay, so now I have a pretty good selection. I make a new layer because I don't want to mess with this one, and Control Shift I will reverse the selection. So you see now it's just this rectangle, and if I press Ctrl Shift I, it's like reversed. Should be around here. Inverse selection. Shift Ctrl I. Okay. So now if I Shift F5 and fill this with say black, I fill it like this, can deselect it and really make my triangle, delete this. So this is what I need. Ctrl Shift I, delete. So I have half an equilateral triangle. I just clone this to the side and go to edit, transform, flip horizontal, and it should snap. I can like double check. Control and arrows will like move it, and it seems perfectly in order to me. Yeah, so that's one triangle. It's over here. So I need like 6, right? So I just Control and J will duplicate the layers, the current active layers. I have 1 2 3 4 5. Control J again. So now I just have to Control T, move this here. You can also like use this gizmo. Usually it's here. You can click here. Okay, again Shift and rotate. Okay, I select another layer, Control T, Shift and rotate, Enter. Select Control T for free transforming it, Shift and rotate, perfect, Control T. Again, you can notice how this is so much more fun than just making a hexagon. So now I have it. It's like a Death Star something. So I'm looking again at my pattern. This is actually a reference from another image. So I would need like these lines to follow the inner lines from my hexagon and just go like half of them. So first of all, I'll set up some rulers here so I can snap to my important directions. And rulers, you have to know, they will snap to pixels. You see, this actually snaps to the bottom edge here, but it doesn't snap here because my currently selected layer, say, is just this one. Probably is this triangle. So I need to shift and click up, so I select all the layers here and Control E to merge them all. So now it should snap properly. Okay, I can check. Apparently I've got some like gray pixels here, so let me take care of this. Delete. Let me check if I have something like this. No. Okay, on this side I'll delete these ones because they're so much towards white. I don't think they should be there. Okay, let's try again. It snapped perfectly this time. Also here, also here, and also here. I already have a ruler down there. So now I'll take advantage of like these pixels not being fully complete here. Let me see if they snap. They snap. It's perfect. Okay, I said I want to build something like this, like this Y shape stuff. We'll make it like from here to here and from here to somewhere in the middle. So to make it in the middle, I'll just make a selection here, and I have a snap on the middle of my selection. I also make a selection here and have it snapping. And I also need like a horizontal selection to know where it intersects this line. So make another ruler here and down here. Okay, this should do for now. We'll see if we need more rulers in a sec. So let's make a new layer and change this color to something more pretty that will show off on our black uh, shape behind, and we'll use just lines again. I don't know, 60 pixels. Yeah, that seems fine. So like I said, I'll start from the middle, so from the middle of this segment, from here. I can constrain this with shift, you see, to go in certain directions. I want it horizontal, and then from here I'll just go. You see how it snaps? I can move my cursor around this point and it won't move out. And again like this. That's it. So this is my main shape. I obviously need to repeat this several times over. So I'll just Ctrl J and duplicate this layer. Pressing Ctrl shifts my active tool actually in this tool, you see. So marquee with Ctrl is this one. Let's move, and I need this one to be in here. I'll notice that it will snap, which is great. Probably it snaps on this pixels here, I don't know, but it seems legit. I can check it with a selection, see if this is half of this, and it is. It's great. Okay, and if I press hold alt and control, I can duplicate this automatically. You'll see it will add another layer here. So again, I'll check because I can't be 100% sure. So yeah, it's good. And I need it in here as well, and in here. So again, it should be like this. Yeah, see, it's perfect. And also up in here, once you press Ctrl and Alt key and duplicate the layer, you don't need to hold those keys anymore. Okay, I'll just check it. Okay, everything seems fine. Okay, now I'll just duplicate this, and I'm not sure, should it be here? No, let me check this. Yes, I should have one in here as well, and another one. It should be, you see, it's hard to gauge where this should be. So let me make another ruler. I'll use my selection as a tape measure, and yeah, this is it. Double check this. Okay, so this fits perfectly in the middle. Okay, so at this point I don't longer need the rulers, so I can view clear guides, sorry, not rulers. These are the rulers, and the blue lines, these are guides. So select everything here, move them a bit more to the center, and what I'll do now is simply I have to find at this point selection which is rectangular. It doesn't have to be a square like it was before. It can be any rectangular shape, but it should be a shape that will have all the tiling set right. So at this moment I can't find that shape. I need to repeat this pattern a couple of times to on each directions to see it, to have my reference rectangle right. So I'll just Control and G and group these together. See, call it, I don't know, 0 1, and now having, I can select these and make them slightly less opaque, and now when I move all my group I can make sure it snaps on my hexagon properly, so that's just perfect right there. And then it should come in here. Let me check. I can't see much. Let me check in here. Yeah, it seems in order. Yeah, this is correct. Okay, and I'll also place one in here. I can notice that it snaps, so I'm pretty confident it's all good. And I just double checking. Okay, so at this point I should have my marquee capable of finding something repetitive. So I'm looking firstly on the vertical, so I see this line, right, is the same with this one, and I can easily imagine that will be the same at this exact same distance down. So I can start I'll start with a larger selection and just free transform it. So let's start from the bottom of this one and make sure, okay, and from the bottom of it to the bottom of it. So in this way I'm making sure that, see, this is inside my selection, so this line right here exists and has to be continued with these lines right above it. So when I look down inside my same selection, it is just right. So now I need to find some landmark on the horizontal. So I can choose like this line, like right here. And now I have to think, if I do just this, will it be alright? I can check uh, on my hypothesis. So I have just this. No, I don't think it will work. So I have this corner right here, which would be this one. No, it might work. Okay, but just to be like on the safe side, I could go a little longer and go just to this one. So I'm just like 100% positive right now. I don't have to bust my mind over it and to make sure this will tile properly. So I'll just press enter. I'm happy with this selection, and if it turns out bad, I'll just check it as a pattern and then go about it again. So now I'll just select them all and ungroup them. Okay, I just find these black ones and hide them. If I would have named them right, I could have like filtered them, but in my case they're all there, so that's sad. Like if they had like some name, um, that would have worked. So now I'm taking everything and making it 100% opaque. And also, like I told you before, patterns I'm missing something. I'm missing this one. Patterns can record opacity, so I'm not sure why these aren't 100% visible. Yeah, I missed some. Okay, so if I make this pattern as it is, it will be yellow, like this precise yellow. And this may be good in some situations. Most likely than not, it won't be that good. You'll usually want to have it grayscale because you can always colorize it later using multiply or screen or some color mode. So I'll just make it all black. I'll make a big group with all of these, Control G, and go color overlay, go black. So like I told you before, it doesn't matter if you have effects or anything applied. This will just sample everything. It will merge all the layers as it would when you save a PNG file, for instance. So now I go to edit. You see, I don't have defined pattern available right now. This can happen, to my knowledge, from two scenarios. One, when your selection is very big. It's not the case right now. This isn't a really big selection. And the second, it is when your selection isn't say naturally made, so you just didn't make a selection and that's it. And that's probably something to do with whatever algorithms are behind the marquees in Photoshop. So in my case, I'll just snap some rulers to my selection. Oh, sorry, I won't do that. And now I deselect and reselect and go edit, and there you have it. Now it's visible. So keep this in mind and make sure you have some rulers to your selection. Now define pattern, we'll call this hexa, say 01 or 16 pixels. You should name your patterns as informative as possible, because it's very fun to like build a library of them and have them at hand in your project. So right now I can hide this, show my fully white layer, and let's see the pattern overlay, and there it is. It's the last pattern in the list. Okay, so let's see, let's make it smaller. Yeah, so it I'll just say okay, view, clear guides. So as we can see, it's perfectly patterned. And if I want, for instance, to see its transparency in action, so all I have to do is reduce the fill. This fill controls this the pixels from the actual layer without anything else applied to it. The effects are controlled by opacity, right? So if I keep the fill to 100%, it's all white, and I can reduce the opacity. Well, the opacity will reduce everything together, so not just the effect. If I want just the pattern to be less opaque, I can reduce it from here, right? So again, opacity and fill are visible here. So if I click the topmost tab, well, not the topmost, the second topmost, I can control opacity and fill, right? And another set of pretty interesting options which we'll not cover here. So say I want to mess around with this pattern a bit more, just like an easy trick. Let's make it 25% because we know this will be sharp, and it is. And say I want to rotate this pattern. I don't have any command in here that will allow me to rotate it. I can move it, like just click and drag. With this window open, I just click and drag around. It will move. But that's pretty much all I can do with it. So let's say I want to warp it and not just rotate it. I can't do that. And the best way and the most flexible way of doing this, however, is to use smart object. So what I'll do, I'll make this fill to 0, and I'll just make this smart object, right? So convert to smart object. I don't know if you see the entire window. Now it's better. Convert to smart object. Okay, so now I can move it. I could have done this before. We'll have somewhat a similar effect. So let me undo this a couple of times. So if now I do this, you see it has the same effect. You can notice here how the thumbnails show that my white pixels, I can preview them, are like moving. And if I rotate this, the pattern won't rotate, the pattern will stay the same. It will resample along my pixels. Press escape. Let me undo that back. So again, I'll make this a smart object, and now I can rotate. Okay, and I can also do many other things to it. So I can say make a nice perspective here. Press this button and you have this warping capabilities. I don't know exactly what this is. So maybe, I don't know, for your background or for something, you have this. Get this and enter. You see, and you could have done it by rasterizing the layer, uh, but this way, for instance, I don't lose, in fact, my pattern scale. And how can I get that? Let's see, I just double click on this icon. This little pop-up window will advise me that I have to save a file before it becoming active, and I can make this really small because I don't need it. This is in fact my smart object, right? So it's, if you want to see it, it's what I had, just that layer. So now I can go in here and choose pattern overlay and make this like bigger scale. Click OK, Control S, and it will update here as well. So I can also go make it much smaller, say 5%. OK, Control Save, and it will update in here, right? So when I click in here, I have access to this. And the best part of this is that not only that I can control uh, all the parameters from the layer style, I can also now add another layer style to the smart object and say do a gradient overlay of this, right? So which can be really cool. Let's choose, I don't know, this, and put some nicer colors in. Right, so I can, which is something that would have been impossible because see, if I make a new layer here, fill it up with, say, white, and choose pattern overlay. Now I can make it like this. I can definitely not warp it around and transform it, and if I try to do a gradient overlay, I can only do it like I have to choose something like screen to, that's pretty much all the flexibility I have. Choose a blending mode that will work with black and go from here and see I can colorize it, but again my options are much more limited this way. I'm dependent on a specific blend mode, and again I cannot deform this. I can simply delete part of it, you know, and that's pretty much it. So smart objects and layer styles are really interesting to play with, and you can do so much with a pattern. So hoping this was very helpful to you, and I can only hope that you'll experiment more with building up your own patterns. What you see online is definitely not more complex than what we covered today. So until next time.